and welcome to day 21 of our 30-day Learn to Sew challenge. In this video, we are going to begin another project, which is a beginner-friendly drawstring backpack using my pattern named Burkett. And this tutorial is divided into 4 mini tutorials, so that way it's more manageable to complete the project. This hands-free drawstring backpack will keep your belongings secure while traveling and going about your day. It's lightweight and minimalist, which makes it a practical companion to take to school, sports, the gym, flea markets, and even as a carry-on. This pattern will teach you an easy method for installing a zipper pocket. You'll get comfortable with working with a variety of different materials and purse hardware. You'll learn how to install a drawstring closure using grommets and pre-made bias tape. And I'll also share lots of helpful tips along the way. If you haven't already, please make sure to purchase the pattern before beginning this tutorial. You can find it on our website, or you can even request it at your local quilt shop. Each of the patterns that I designed are named after classic movies, and this pattern name and design was inspired by the 1940 comedy My Favorite Wife. If you haven't watched this movie before, you might enjoy it, and you could even guess who the character is that the pattern is named after if you want to post your comment below. All right, so let's begin by going over the pieces that you'll need. For this project, you'll need a main fabric, which can be ripstop, laminated cotton, canvas, or interfaced quilt cotton. And the main fabric will be used for the exterior top and the drawstring casing. So if you do decide to use cotton like I am, you'll want to interface your fabrics before beginning the project. You'll also need a contrast fabric, and this will be for the exterior bottom, and I recommend to use a faux leather or cork fabric. It adds some nice stability and structure to the bottom of the bag. Next, you'll need some fabric for the lining, and this will be for the interior of the bag and also the zipper pocket lining fabric. So when you open up your zipper, you will see this fabric, and I recommend using quilt cotton for the lining. For the drawstring, you'll need 2 packages of pre-made bias tape. I'm using 1/2 inch wide double fold bias tape, and I chose a color to coordinate with my main fabric. You'll also need a set of 2 grommets. So there is 1/2 to each side of the grommet. So here I have 4 pieces laid out. So here's 1 grommet components and another components of grommets. There is a male half and a female half to each grommet. If you'd like, you can add a handmade label to your project. I like to recommend our metal handmade labels. They say the word handmade on them. I'm using our sans serif font, but we also have script fonts available, and the metal finish will match all of the hardware, including our zippers. So you can choose a color that goes well with your fabrics. Next, you'll need a zipper. So you can use either size number 5 or size number 3. And the size reference is to the width of the coil of the zipper. And it will need to be a nylon zipper that you can cut and sew through. So our zippers have a metallic finish, so they look like metal, but they're actually nylon, which is really great for sewing into seams and making your projects look super professional. And you'll need 1 pull to go along with that. So I'm using zipper by the yard. So I simply just cut the length that we need for the pattern, and I have my pull, and I'll show you how to put the pull on to the tape. It's very easy to do. You'll also need some helpful notions, including 40 weight polyester thread. I recommend sewing clips. You'll need some pins, chalk or a removable pen. A stiletto is really helpful. It's great for pushing out the corners and curved edges, and then the pointed end is great to act as a stiletto to help guide your fabric through the sewing machine. So this is the Sallie Tomato Essential Turning and Creasing Tool. I always keep one handy next to my sewing machine. Also helpful for this project are a couple of different feet. So this is a very narrow zipper foot. You can use a standard zipper foot, but my preference is the very narrow foot because it's a lot easier to install zippers and do close top stitching. Also helpful is a Teflon foot. So this is a foot that is coated to slide over unique fabrics such as cork fabric and faux leather that are a bit tacky or slick. It helps guide the fabric through your machine. So those feet aren't completely necessary, but they're super helpful, and a standard zipper foot usually comes with most sewing machines. Let's begin by assembling the front. You'll take 1 main fabric piece B, which is your exterior top, and 1 contrast piece C, which is the exterior bottom, and then also grab your zipper. So if you're using Zipper by the Yard like me, you'll need to add a zipper pull onto the zipper tape. It's really easy to do this because the zipper is longer than we need it to be, and that will help you get the pulls onto the tape. So the first method I'm going to show you is using a handy zipper jig tool. So this tool is super helpful for adding zipper pulls. There are 2 slots. One slot is a size number 3, and then there's a size number 5. And that is depending on the coil width in millimeters. So I'm using a 5 millimeter wide coil, which is the number 5. So I'm going to position the pole backwards, meaning the flat side is the underside and the top side has the pull tab. So I'm going to have the underside facing me. And you'll also notice that there's a rounded end with 2 openings, and then there's a flat end with only 1 opening. You're going to want the rounded end with the 2 openings face up, and then just slide it into the number 5 slot. Then take the zipper, and you can feed it through from either end and separate both ends of the zipper. So now you have 2 sides to your zipper tape. And since our pull is facing backwards, we're gonna face the tape backwards too and have the underside of the tape facing up. The top side has the pretty coil and the underside just has the stitching. So you're gonna take the ends of the zipper and feed them through at the same time through the openings. And I recommend to angle the zipper tape a little bit to help guide it in. And you push down and you can pull with your fingers and the zipper just slides onto the tape. And then you can lift it off the tool and voila, your zipper pull is added to your tape. If you don't have a handy zipper jig, there's another way that you can add it onto the raw end. So take a scissors and cut off a 1/4 inch of the tape, or a 1/2 inch if you need a little bit more room. And this technique will only work if you have your zipper cut longer than what you need. So make sure you cut an extra 1/2 inch or even an inch just to give you plenty of room in case you need to cut a little bit more. So now you'll notice one side of the zipper tape is shorter than the other. So you're going to position the tape and the pull right side up, guide the longer side in first, so that way you have one end in the pull, and as the other side reaches the short end of the tape, you're gonna guide that end into the pull. So it kind of helps to angle it in just to make sure that the teeth are caught, and then you can just make sure that the ends are aligned. So I have to back up a little bit and then readjust, and then you can just pull the zipper pull on. So 2 easy methods for adding on the zipper pull for Zipper by the Yard. And you'll want to zip the zipper out of the way. So I'm going to zip it all the way to the end and stitch across the end of the zipper coil a few times with a few back stitches to make sure that the zipper doesn't come off that other end. And you can do the same on the opposite end. Another thing before we begin is to make sure that if you're using quilt weight cotton, like I mentioned before, you'll want to add some interfacing to the wrong side. So I've already went ahead and fused a lightweight woven interfacing to the wrong side of each of my main fabric pieces, which will give it a little bit more stability. You can simply go to the fabric store and ask someone for help or recommendations on interfacing, or visit our blog for more information on what type of interfacing might be best for your project. And you'll follow some instructions from the manufacturer. Usually the interfacing that you purchase will have a little instruction sheet or tip sheet with how to fuse the interfacing. So that's really helpful. You can set the top panel aside for now, and we're going to start with the bottom. So with right sides together, you're going to position one long edge of your zipper tape along the top long edge of the contrast bottom panel, and let the zipper pull hang off of the project or extend past the fabric. So that way the zipper pull is completely out of the way as you sew. Then take some clips and clip the zipper in place. Since we're using faux leather for our contrast fabric, we can't use pins because it will leave permanent holes. So the clips are great to keep everything held together. I've already wound a bobbin and threaded my machine with the thread that I would like to use. And I've already attached the narrow zipper foot onto my machine, so that way the needle is aligned over the left indent of the foot. So you'll want the needle to be as close to the coil as possible. So usually on zipper feet there are two positions that you can have your needle, and it's either left justified or right justified. So you do not want to use center needle position when you have a zipper foot on your machine, because you could break a needle. So just make sure your zipper foot is positioned correctly, and you're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance across the entire top edge, and make sure to backstitch. Next, with right sides together, layer one piece E, which is your pocket lining, over the exterior bottom and the zipper. Make sure that you align the top edge and also the side edges, and we're going to add some clips to hold the layers together. Now at the machine, you're going to sew together along the top edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it's always a good idea to backstitch to reinforce your seams. After sewing, fold the pocket lining and the exterior bottom away from the zipper so your fabrics are going to be wrong sides together. And you cannot iron faux leather, so I always just finger press the seam and keep the edges folded, and then you're going to sew an 1/8 inch from the seam. And since we're doing some top stitching and you'll want the needle closest to the seam allowance, I'm going to change my stitch so the needle is right justified. You can turn the hand wheel to double check that the needle will not hit the foot, and if you need to shift the needle a little more to the right, you can simply adjust the width on your sewing machine. By increasing it, we'll move the needle to the right. Also, for top stitching, I do like to increase my stitch length to 3 millimeters long, and that has a more defined stitch and for a professional finish. So as I stitch, I'm pulling the zipper a little bit, not too much to warp the zipper or the seam, but that way I know that the seam fold is tight and even. Next, take your remaining pocket lining piece and position it against the right side of the attached lining piece. So the right sides of the lining pocket panels should be together or facing each other. Make sure that you align the top unsewn edge of the zipper tape and also the side edges. Add some clips to hold together. Adjust your needle position so that way your needle is on the left side of your zipper foot, so you're sewing closest to the coil and can easily maintain a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the top edge. Next, you'll take the exterior top and align the long raw edge right sides together with the zipper. Make sure the sides are also even and clip the layers together. Then you'll sew together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then you'll press only the exterior top away, and you can press with your iron or just finger press. You could even grab the Sallie Tomato Essential turning and creasing tool and just rub the seam and lightly press down to help press at your work table. Then you'll top stitch an 1/8 inch from the seam. Next, you'll flip the front panel over so the wrong side is face up and smooth out the pocket lining pieces. Then take your scissors and trim so that way the bottom edges of the pocket lining are even. Next, pin only the layers of the pocket lining together along the bottom edge. You can switch out the zipper foot on your machine to your standard foot and change to center needle position. Then grab only the layers of the pocket lining and sew the long bottom edge together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Slide the zipper pull so it's inside the bag and smooth the pocket lining down so it's flat against the contrast fabric. Clip the pocket lining to the side edges of your contrast piece. Then, starting above each side of the zipper tape, you're going to sew along the side edges, stopping at the bottom edge of the pocket lining with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just sew slowly as you reach the zipper tape and make sure to backstitch. So when you go to sew the opposite side, it's easiest to start at the bottom edge of the pocket lining and sew up. Otherwise, you could always flip it over to the wrong side and start above the zipper tape and sew down. And this option might be preferred, so that way you're not pushing the lining up when you sew from the bottom. After sewing the sides, you can trim off that excess zipper tape so it's even with the side edge of the fabric, and trim away any thread tails. Next, you're going to trim the assembled front panel so it measures the height according to the pattern. So listed in the pattern is how tall the piece should measure, and if you need to trim it down, you're going to cut from the top edge. After trimming your front panel, the last step in this section of instructions is optional. If you'd like, you can install a metal handmade label. I'm going to show you how easy it is to install with just a seam ripper and a standard ink pen. So your metal handmade label will come with the metal label piece, and you'll notice that there are two metal prongs on the back side of it. So straighten out those prongs so they are parallel to each other. It also came with a washer. So you're going to start with the washer, center it according to your pattern above the zipper seam, and take your label and notice which holes the prongs align with. So for this hardware and this washer, it is the second slit that each prong aligns with. So just simply take an ink pen and mark each of those slits. Then you can set the washer aside and the label. One tip is to take a pin and to add it at the top of the slit mark. Now, once you take your seam ripper, you'll start by poking the seam ripper through the fabric at the bottom edge of the mark and cut up to the pin. Because that pin is in the fabric, your seam ripper will not go any further. So that way you don't accidentally cut past into more of your fabric than you need to. So then you can place the pin above the opposite slit and cut that one as well. Then take your handmade label and poke the prongs through the slits from the right side to the wrong side. Flip your project over so the wrong side is face up and place the washer over the prongs. Then bend the prongs away from the center. I always recommend to add a few drops of permanent glue over the prongs, because as you use your bag, things might shift and bend, and the extra glue just will help reinforce your hardware and prevent it from coming loose. I also recommend, if you do have any interfacing scraps, to cut a piece that is larger than the hardware and simply fuse it over the hardware backing piece. So that way that protects your fabric from getting scratched from the metal. Great job today! We tackled the most involved part of the pattern, so from here on out, the rest of the construction will be a breeze. I hope you'll join me for tomorrow's video where we'll continue to work on this pattern. But until then, leave a comment, let us know if you're enjoying the project so far, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you're notified when the next video releases. I'll see you tomorrow!